Happy Halloween, nobles! The witching hour is upon us, and what better way to celebrate the spooky season than with some video games. Horror-themed video games are far from new, dating back to the 80s, but since the mid-90s the genre has come into its stride following such titles as Resident Evil and Silent Hill. As horror became more prominent in the public eye, a swath of titles were released, and among these titles, the following 10 stand out among their peers for their often chilling and pants-wettingly terrifying portrayal of horrific themes. As a final note, the one game per series rule will stand so we don't have half the list dominated by any one series. Join us now, as we delve into the greats, the Director's Choice Top 10 Horror Games for Halloween. While not terrifying in the traditional sense like games that followed soon after its release, I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream is deeply unsettling, emotionally scarring, and makes the gamer question themselves at every segment. Based on a short story of the same name, and featuring vocals and writing from the original author, this point-and-click adventure is one game that should be in every horror game enthusiast's collection. Considering the protagonist of our next entry is a 2-year-old child, Among the Sleep deals with some rather deep and dark themes, such as alcoholism and domestic violence. The ideas behind this horror game are very interesting, treating us to some wonderful and twisted visuals from the imagination of a child. A standout indie title of recent years, Limbo is stark, dark and unsettling. Horrible things wait just beyond the dark borders of the screen, taunting and beckoning us ever onward into the deep shadows. For a Halloween game, Limbo is a perfect accompaniment to the season. It's short enough to be finished on Halloween night, thought-provoking and an arachnophobe's purest nightmare. Straight out of a Lovecraftian tale, Eternal Darkness was one of the pioneers of its type, a game that not only messed with the protagonist's head, but ours too. with eldritch horrors and historical escapades abound. This GameCube title is one sorely needing both a HD re-release and a sequel. While neither are likely, we can always hope.
The emptiness. The shadows. Your fear. This June, the terror will consume you. Your eyes will deceive you, and nothing will be what it seems. A story centuries in the making. A thriller that blurs the line between reality and illusion. Eternal darkness.
Speaking of Lovecraft, here comes a doozy. A title overplayed on gaming channels, sure, but it's played so much for good reason. Amnesia: The Dark Descent is just that, a descent into a horrific nightmare. Inspiring many of today's horror games that favor a chasing monster without any means of defense other than hiding, Amnesia does this in such a masterful way that even its multitude of game mods are worth a play. Let's check out some notable mentions, games that barely missed the list. The newest entry on our list, even if it is in notable mentions, is this wonderful freebie from Konami. Despite PT being just a playable teaser, it's a great standalone scarefest and bodes well for the future of horror games. If you own a PS4, we cannot recommend this enough for your Halloween gaming.
This killing took place while the family was gathered at home on a Sunday afternoon. Don't touch that dial now. The father purchased the rifle used in the crime at his local gun store 2 days earlier. This brutal killing took place while the family was gathered at home on a Sunday afternoon. Don't touch.
Hold on to your butts.
Okay, I want us to be together until the end of the world.
Jenny! I'm sorry.
Back in the day, horror wasn't very easy to create in a game, but before the Gaming Standards Commission came up with the age rating system, the series made its name embody horror and violence. In recent years though, horror has knocked it up a notch, and with the current console generation, Splatterhouse came right back, and even brought its 3 older titles along for the ride as a freebie after completing the main game.
Till Jen's back safe in your arms, you're mine.
Lone Survivor is an odd one, a blend of modern-day survival horror gaming and decades-old gameplay. An indie title of course, but it had many of us questioning whether or not this level of horror could have actually been achieved on 16-bit consoles. But no matter the answer, Lone Survivor is an amazing game that goes for a pittance on Steam.
Auf der Schattenseite des Friedens und des Wachstums gab und gibt es aber auch immer das Böse.
While not exactly a scary game, Castlevania has always sat among the horror crowd with its nods and direct references to classic horror novels and movies, pioneering games to be filled with vampires, zombies and good old-fashioned skeleton mobs. Rondo of Blood stands far above its brothers, serving as the prequel to Symphony of the Night and being the definitive classic pre-Metroidvania Castlevania experience.
Nach 100 Jahren ist der Böse wieder auferstanden. Er kann sich in eine Fledermaus, lebt ewig. Der Burgherr des Teufelsschlosses, der Herr des Bösen, Graf Dracula ist auferstanden.
The granddaddy of all horror games came even as a surprise to the most hardened of horror game enthusiasts. Who would have thought that a game on the Famicom of all things could inspire so much dread and fear, and yet, it never fails to disturb us. Sweet Home is Nintendo hard at its finest, pushing the machine to its limits and being as tough as a diamond. Serving as a true sequel to the Clock Tower series, Hunting Grounds came at us out of nowhere and had us on the edge of our seats from start to finish. Like Amnesia, this one favors running and hiding as opposed to fighting, with your only means of attack being a faithful dog who can, just like the protagonist, fall prey to the evil in pursuit. The game becomes this mighty risk versus reward situation. Fight via your only friend so you can escape with a chance he could die, or hide and risk being found at any moment.
Go, Huey.
Despite its inauspicious start in the gaming world, Siren had some amazing concepts, and thankfully all these concepts were well and truly revived in the PS3 reboot of the series. Featuring smart AI that are always on the hunt, the game forces the player to think on their next move, see through the eyes of the hunters, and be careful about every step and every noise they make in escaping the area. The third entry in a fantastic series of games, Fatal Frame. The Tormented serves as an amazing finale to the original trilogy, closing the stories started in both the first and second game, interweaving the aftermath of their stories with its own tale. Despite this interweaving, Fatal Frame 3 never loses sight of its own story, dealing with issues like loss and survivor's guilt in a masterful way. Combining all that with a solid control scheme and a fantastic atmosphere, Fatal Frame 3 tops the list among other games in its series. This is how you remake a game. Taking everything that made the original Resident Evil such a gem and ramping it all the way up as far as it can go. Resident Evil on the GameCube added so much more to the recipe and unleashed onto the console one of the most amazing survival horror experiences to ever grace this or any console. While 2 may be the most played of the series, none can deny when it comes to the game series at its roots, the remake is the mightiest leap the series could have taken, making all of us wish 2 and 3 had been given the same treatment.
James, honey, did something happen to you? After we got separated in that long hallway? Are you confusing me with someone else? You were always so forgetful. Remember that time in the hotel? You said you took everything, but you forgot that videotape we made. I wonder if it's still there. I'm not your Mary.
Departing the overarching story of the first and third games, Silent Hill 2 emerged from the swirling fog like a horrific creature bent on tearing the player limb from limb. While the third game is a fine successor to the series following this one, 2 stands out nicely on its own 2 feet, independent of its brother titles. While Silent Hill may have taken a bit of a nosedive in recent years, PT being the exception, 2 is the one most of the later titles emulate, and for good reason really. Returning us to the streets of the cursed town of Silent Hill, the game presents us time and again with the option to not proceed further into the depths, ultimately leaving us with the only choice, venturing further into the nightmare.
Mary anyway.
Like your girlfriend?
No, my late wife. I can't believe it. You could be her twin. Your face, your voice, just your hair and clothes are different.
Name is Maria. I don't look like a ghost, do I? Oh, it's you. Just leave me?
No, but
With all these monsters around?
no, I just...
I'm here for you, James. See? I'm real.
Thank you for joining us. We'll see you real soon, but until then, happy Halloween.